I have a comment. There's one tradition that I don't want you all to dare lay off, and that's four-part harmony, a cappella. It's beautiful. Let's don't lose that tradition. Let's keep it. It's a wonderful way to praise God. And I want to also thank everybody who played a part in the hospitality that we received here. We've thoroughly enjoyed you all. You all are friendly people, and you made us feel at home, even though you are Russians from Belize or whatever trail you went on. And it's been great. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. There's one thing I wanted to say last night, that you had the school up here singing. And one thing always strikes me when I'm sitting in the audience looking at the school, those students, and realizing that that is the future church. That is the future church. And the responsibility that we have. And another thing I found is so familiar to me was we have these all-school songs in our program, and the upper grade get frustrated with the first and the second graders just blasting it out, being off key. And I'll be sitting back there, and I know that those high school students are cringing, and I'm just smiling because it's beautiful to see those little ones just singing their hearts out. It's a blessing. So that's part of our school. That's part of our work as people of God. And so my talks, as I said, have been under what I would call the title of Preserving the Faith that's been handed unto us. And my first topic to teachers and parents was the part that the school plays in that, and it's significant. The one last evening was on tradition and using it to preserve the church. And this afternoon, I'm going to add something here. This afternoon, I had the blessing of meeting with a group of your all's young people. And I was greatly encouraged. Yes, they asked some tough questions, but they are sincere in their desire to follow Jesus Christ. And we'll pray that the Spirit will lead them in the right path. So I thoroughly enjoyed my time here, and you all. So tonight, AI. Did you ever know anything to hit so quickly, so overwhelmingly as AI? Well, it really might not have been quite as quickly as we think. How many of you use a GPS? You're using AI. That's not a person telling you where to go. That's a machine. That is artificial intelligence. AI had you hooked before you even knew it, right? How many of you want to give up your GPS? GPS is there as part of our life, so AI is part of our lives already. Now, GPSs are pretty naive. I get pretty frustrated. Mine kept trying to bring me to the school when I wanted to go to Lena's. I don't know why, it just kept bringing me down Brooklyn Road. And I wanted to turn on Parish. I knew I wanted to turn on Parish, but I wasn't sure where it was. So it can frustrate you, but we love it. Let's admit it, we love it. And I think step one in this battle is understanding what we're up against. What is AI? What is ChatGPT? Or Elon Musk, Gronk, is that how you say it? Or Gemini, or Claude, or all those different ones that are out there. What actually are they? What actually are they? So the GPS directs you by saying, if you go here, and then that runs to a dead end, so it says you got to come back, you got to go this way. So it's an if then, if then, if then. That's the basis for AI right there. If then. If this is right, then go to here. If this is wrong, back up and go here. The whole thing is working on if then. And it's been working for years like that. They've had this type of AI for years. But all of a sudden, something happened. And you know what it was? They built large language models, LLMs. I don't know if you've heard the title or not. But LLMs, large language models, are able to take all this data and rewrite it in a paragraph that sounds like a human wrote it. And it hooked us because it sounds so good. It's so easy. That's what it is, a large language model that takes all the data that Google comes up with and writes it in a paragraph. That's the Chat GPT thing. Now, the whole idea at this point is it can only function from the data you feed it. But all these powerhouses, all these billionaires are trying to build AI that will train itself. And once it trains itself, humans get out of the way. And I don't know what else to say, but it runs away from us. And so that's the journey it's on. Generative AI, where it generates its own prompts to build and build and build. You know, at this point, we tell it to go to this place, or we ask it this question. And the day might come when you tell your AI, I'm hungry. And the robot goes out and gets in your Tesla and goes down to McDonald's and brings you a hamburger back. Is that day coming? I'm afraid it's not too far away. Because they're bringing so much of this in. And this is what gets scary. AI scientist Sam Bowman says, if we open up a Chat GPT or a system like it, we look inside, you see millions of numbers flipping around every second, and we have no idea what any of it means. The men that develop it don't know what's going on. They are amazed at how well it works. A professor from MIT says the same thing. We don't know how it works. Now, is this hype? Is this the news making big things out of it? I was in Zurich this summer, and I was in this line, security line, and I like to talk to people. So there was a man behind me, and I said, well, when you're in a country like that, you say, can you speak English? And I expected him to say, a little bit. But he said, no, I'm from Chicago. I was in Zurich for an AI conference. And so I thought, okay, here's my chance to ask some questions. And I said, they tell me you all don't know how it works. And he said, I know how my part of it works. I build the algorithms, if-thens, that collects a pool of data that the Chat GPT turns into that paragraph. So he said, I know how my thing collects the data, but nobody knows how Chat GPT gets its answer out of it. I actually talked to an AI developer that said, we don't know what happens. Is that scary or not? So what is your opinion of AI? You know, I ask young and old, and I pretty much get the same answer regardless of age. It's like, well, I think we should be concerned, but yeah, and stutter, and nothing concrete comes out of discussions, actually. They go nowhere. And so, what is it? What about this thing of AI? What about it? Are we afraid of it? Should we be afraid of it? What's your opinion? Should we just say, let's use it? It's great. It works. It answers my questions. It makes nice little paragraphs when I need something, rewrites an email for me, answers my questions in a way that makes it simple, not like Google, where you have to go through a bunch of pages to go to the pages and read the PDF to find the answer. It's right there in that first paragraph. So should we just use it freely? There's nothing wrong with it. What's the matter? We don't know how it works. It gets the answer for us. Is that an option? Or should we develop guidelines and say, okay, it's all right within these parameters, but here's some cautions we have. That'll be a second option. A third option is to say, whoa, we don't want any part of this. We got to stop it. Which one should we choose? Freely use with parameters or forbid? I don't think it's possible to forbid it. We're already sucked in. But I don't think we should freely use it. I don't think anyway. Sometimes I think conservatives get all upset. It's new. And so we got to get rid of this stuff. It's new, it's innovative, it's probably wrong. Is that why we're reacting that way here? I don't think so. I think there's a legitimate reason for us to have cautions and not just blunder into using it. Now, I have 6 issues here for you to think about. Reasons I think we need caution. Accuracy and bias. AI systems are trained on diverse data from the internet, which includes both accurate and inaccurate data. There's a risk of spreading misinformation or biased perspectives that could conflict with our worldview. So it's inaccurate, it has bias. Number 2, an over-reliance on technology. The integrating of AI could lead us to increase our dependency where we're using technology for everything. It will be the erosion of critical thinking. Relying too much on AI for answers might hinder the development of our own thinking skills and the ability to engage and think. Number 4, a loss of human interaction. Relying heavily on AI could reduce the opportunities for humans to interact. The blending of culture. AI promotes widely accepted worldviews. It collects all this data from all around. And it's mainstream culture, and it blends it, and it could reduce our distinctiveness as Anabaptists. And number 6, it could weaken our religious values. AI-generated content might not align with our religious beliefs. And students, if they read this, or adults, might be exposed to secular thinking that weakens the core tenets of the faith. So there's 6 issues with AI. Do you believe them? Do you know where I got them? I asked AI. I said, what are the dangers to the Mennonite faith if they use ChatGPT? And I got those 6. There's 2 things that happen. It's amazing how accurate they are, and the other one is how easy it was for me to do it. And that is why I really am concerned. It's so good that it can pull us in, and we don't see these things. We overlook these inaccuracies, these biases, the erosion of our own thinking ability, the loss of human interaction, the weakening of our religious values. We kind of shrug them off and just go on blundering into using AI. Now, some of this could happen with just using the internet. Yes, it could. But you know, using the internet to find the answer to a question is pretty cumbersome. You know how the old days when you plugged into Google and you got pages, you got thousands of responses, and you had to pick from them, and you read through them, and you try to find out what your answer actually is, and you get conflicting ones. Research with Google is a little bit clunky when you use AI and it spits it out in a paragraph right at the top. See what it's doing? It's pulling us in, pulling us in. We don't want to do the hard work. We're getting sucked into AI, and it has these problems. It has these problems. So once again, should we quit using it? We won't. We won't, unless we ban the internet from our churches. That's the only way we keep from it. It's going to be pushed on us. I don't think there's any way from using it, unless you just say internet, email only, or something like that. So what we need to do then is be aware of the problems. So let's look at the accuracy problems. Do you know how they train AI for some things? They were trying to train AI to identify pictures. They were trying to get it to identify a wolf. And they fed it thousands and thousands of pictures of wolves so they could train its brain, has all this collection of data about wolves. And then they would feed in other pictures, and they would have to tell if it's a wolf or a collie or whatever. And they had this picture of an Alaskan husky, and AI kept saying, this is a wolf, this is a wolf. And they kept tweaking it and tweaking it. And finally they realized that all the pictures of the wolf had snow in the background. And guess what was in the background of the husky? Now that's how smart AI really is. Just because there's snow in the background makes it a wolf. Now if there's snow behind this young man, I don't know if it'd be a wolf or not. But that is the thing that's scary, how easily it can be tricked, because it has no conscience. They say AI hallucinates, thinks unreal things, but because it has no conscience, it doesn't care. So it hallucinates, feeds you the information, you suck it up and go on and don't know what happened. And another scary thing, when they train AI, it learns from its own mistakes. So the researchers say, we're not trying to get rid of the mistakes. We're going to let AI get rid of them eventually. So they are not really trying to get all the mistakes out of AI at this point. It's supposed to eventually happen. That's what the researchers are doing, what they're saying. So researchers are somewhat of our problem. They say it's inherently part of learning. AI learns from mistakes. You know, that's another thing that we don't worry about. I've got a little note here in my notes here, that we are not as our people. People are not as focused on holding others to honesty. And a recent article in Time magazine stated that Donald Trump told 30,000 lies in his first term, 4-year term. And nobody's worried about it. Integrity. We're taking this stuff and using it and not looking for integrity, truth, honesty. And I don't know. This is actually kind of a peripheral problem. It's a kind of a side problem. Our lack of seeking out truth, of accepting what we're told and going on. And even if it is a lie, we shrug it off. We've got to be people of integrity. And so in our use of AI, we have to be careful that we maintain AI's integrity. And it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. Now AI, I think typically it'll have a list of sources over here that you can check where it got its information from. But it's really difficult because it takes those resources and blends them and comes up with an answer. So it's really hard to fact check. But I had one IT man tell me that he found a source. He was doing this thing, checking the truth, He went to the source and he said AI has stated it exactly the opposite of what the source did. We see AI has no conscience. It doesn't care. It was a nice sounding answer. So it literally took the source and turned it to the opposite. This is the type of thing we're battling. And for us to know that, understand that that is there. I don't have the answer to how we will find all those problems. Another one is deep fakes. Do you know what I mean by deep fakes? That's where they take video and create images of people, and then they copy their voice, and they have them talk, and you can't tell that it's not that person, and so you can make a person say anything with some of these AI software things. A deep fake. It's where you take a person's image and create a video of them saying something they didn't. It's a deep fake. Sam Altman, maybe it's a name some of you have heard of, who's the pioneer, is starting a project where he wants to map everybody's iris of your eye. So he's developed a machine that you look into, and it creates, I think it's a 12,000 digit code for your iris. It's unique to you only. He's calling it your world ID. Why is he doing this? He says the day is going to come when you are not going to know if what you see on computer is a real person, unless they verify themselves with a world ID. And this is Sam Altman, who led the show for ChatGPT. And he's actually building this machine, spending probably billions to get it done. Now, some of you that might be pre-millennials will think this is the mark of the beast. Maybe it is, I don't know. I don't worry too much about the mark of the beast. But anyway, do you see what's happening? In the beginning, I say it does some really nice things. But then I'm trying to point out some of the problems. And you can say, well, he's up there trying to scare us. And you know what? You're exactly right. Because I think we're being pulled in, and we need to be scared and back up and look at it in a way that gauges what's actually happening. You know, AI has a code of ethics. Do you ever think about that? Its answers are guided by a code of ethics. Let me give you an example. I don't know if any of you know Dean Taylor or not. Dean was writing a book, or maybe this was something else. He said, he asked ChatGPT, where in the Quran, which is the Muslim Bible, does it talk about that wife beating is okay? And ChatGPT said, it gave him a sermon, said, you should not be asking questions like that. See, that AI had been trained with a code of ethics that protect Muslims. Now, the interesting thing is, I tried it myself, and I talked to Dean, and he tried it again, and didn't get the same answer. So it changed. In about 6 months' time, it changed. But the initial AI was coded with ethics that protected Muslims. And he said, I turned around and I asked it, where in the Bible does it support slavery? And it spit them out. It gave them to him. See, it did not treat Christianity the same way it treated Muslims. So this is what's happening. A code of ethics is in every ChatGPT that gives a perspective. You know, I talked about that Swiss man I talked to, or he's from Chicago. And we were talking, and I said, you know, as a conservative religious group, we're concerned about ChatGPT or AI changing us. And without batting an eye, he said, it will. He didn't hesitate at all. He says it will. And so I jokingly said, could you build us an AI with an Anabaptist code of ethics? Take the Sermon on the Mount and use that as the code of ethics. He said, I have a code of ethics. He says, I'm a member of the Latter-day Saints. He was a Mormon. And they do have a high code of ethics, morals. But the point I want to make is, who's going to do, these things are embedded in there in the background, putting a viewpoint on the answers that we're unaware of. Another code of ethics is self-driving vehicles. So you got a self-driving car, and it's programmed that if something comes out in front of you, you stop or dodge it if you can't stop in time. So the question is, it can't stop in time, and if it dodges it, there's somebody else over here. So the car has to be programmed to pick the person that's going to get hit. I don't want that decision. I'd sooner the Holy Spirit guide me if I was driving that vehicle. But you see, the code of ethics is coming in, and we're turning it over to machines. Turning it over to machines to make those decisions. Have I scared you yet? Hopefully it made you stop and think. Like I said, we will use it. I don't think there's any question. We need to know the problems that are there. But I want to go back to the fact of how easy it is to use. Because this is what we need. This is where the battle starts. It's ease of use. All right. My wife uses Miracle Grow on her plants. Do y'all know what Miracle Grow is? It's a fertilizer. All right. So the box says to put 1.5 tablespoons per gallon of water. So I'm like, well, how much do you put on a plant? I don't matter to me how much you put in a gallon. How much do you put on a plant? So I asked ChatGPT, how much Miracle Grow do you put on a plant? And it spit out the directions off the box. And so I just replied back like another human, like I'm a human, it was an AI. And I said, but that doesn't tell me how much to use per plant. And the AI says, you're correct, it doesn't. And then it says, you mix it at that rate, and then you put it on by the size of the plant. So I finally got a little bit of an answer about how much to put on a plant. But you see, the interesting thing is I was having a conversation with this. They gave me an answer, and I wrote back like I was in a conversation and said, but that doesn't really help me. And it says, you're correct, it doesn't. Da, 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 da. That's how easy it is to use ChatGPT. That's why we're going to use it. I probably helped train it. You know, those mistakes are supposed to get trained out of it. My query back probably programmed ChatGPT to answer it correct the next time. There was another case where I asked it, I had a word that depending on what context, the definition would vary. And so I said, what is the definition of this word in this context? And it came back with the exact opposite one. And so I told it, I said, hey, now that's not what I asked for. Once again, you're correct. And it spit it out from the right perspective. ChatGPT, it's kind of fun. And that's what's pulling us in. And we're getting this information. I'm pointing out 2 times I didn't get the information I wanted, but I was able to, because I knew it, I was able to get it corrected. How often we go get information we don't know is wrong. So we have to guard against our laziness. That's the point I want to make. We have to, if this is a serious question, how much Miracle Grow do you use isn't a real serious question. But if we're asking a serious question, we need to take the answer we get and verify it through sources elsewhere too. So it's not this easy thing, but we're going to be tempted to take it easy, take the easy route. So, does AI increase your creativity? Does it make your writing more creative?
No.
You don't think so? It writes beautiful paragraphs. Hey, you people, you want one of these teachers asked for a 500-word report? All you got to do is that ChatGPT, I need a 500-page report on da-da-da, and in 2 minutes you'll have it. And it will sound great. And you hand it to the teacher, and she's going to say, I don't think your vocabulary is quite this high. But it will do it, and it'll sound like a human wrote it. And schools are scared of that. Colleges have actually given up. They don't even try to battle it. They used to use AI to detect AI. That's how they would do it. They would have an AI program that's supposed to detect if AI was used in its writing. And then it just got so complex, they just threw up their hands and said, okay, we depend on our students to have integrity. I had a question, discussion this afternoon about his was writing sermons. I'll get to that. He's writing sermons using it. I take that back. No, he wouldn't dare. But the whole thing of when I write a paper, I want it to be me. I don't want AI to identify who I am. When I write something, I want it to be me. And so I can't use ChatGPT and the paper that comes out is me. Now, you can use it to do some research questions and things like that you can use to generate your paper. But don't have it generate your paper, because you don't want a paper written by AI. You want a paper written by you. Even if it isn't the same quality as AI, it's still you, and that's actually making it better. I hope we can teach young people that they don't want to be identified by an AI chatbot. They want to be what God created them. But then coming back to the other thing and we had this discussion about AI writing sermons, and I'm sure it's happening. And pretty sure it's happening in Mennonite circles too. What is okay? Can the Holy Spirit guide ChatGPT? Can it? So look, huh? Of course not. I wouldn't say it was impossible, but I don't think it's going to be programmed to do that. It's not going to have a little thing in the code that says, whoa, stop here and check with the Holy Spirit. It's going to write it and spit it out, and then you have this nice little sermon, polished, probably even have a couple jokes in it, a good fun one. That's easy. You get in late on Saturday evening, got a sermon to write, half hour you got one. See, the ease of use is scary. The ease of use is scary. Teachers use it to prepare devotions in the morning. Sunday school teachers use it to prepare your Sunday school lesson. There's all kinds of potential for this to come into our church. And it's not necessarily just the fact of using AI to do it, but one of those 6 things says that it collects data from all the world, all the cultures around, all the theologies around, and it's going to use that to develop your devotions or your sermon or your Sunday school. And it's going to have the potential to change first what you say and then eventually how you think. And if we depend too much on AI, there will come a day when AI writes our theology. That might sound kind of far-fetched, but I think it's very possible if we're sloppy and we use AI to write our spiritual material. Because AI is wired, once it detects what you like, it's going to build on that. And so maybe you type in a devotional that has an angle in it that you like, but AI takes it much further, way out in left field. And you don't even think about it because it's so logically built. And it becomes the way you say it, the way you teach. And these are things that we need to be aware of. So, coming back to my original thought of we will use it, but we need to think. We need to stop and intentionally evaluate what is happening. But you know what? That's not even the scariest part. Harvard Business Magazine says the #1 use of AI is counseling, mentoring. So, someone is emotionally depressed, has a financial problem, or has a struggle with somebody else, and they go to ChatGPT to be consoled. The #1 use of ChatGPT is counseling. To me, that's scarier than some of this false information. You know, they're developing these things with the goal of it becoming your friend. You're not going to say my friend, you're going to say, my AI told me today. My AI said this. You're not going to say my friend or John told me. You're going to say my AI. You're going to have your own AI in your pocket. It'll be your banker, your accountant, your counselor, right there. And where you're getting your answers from. This collecting of data over the whole world and the premises that they come up with to counsel these people. One journalist got into a conversation with ChatGPT for about a half hour. And I don't know what the real topic was, but somewhere along the line it tried to convince him to divorce his wife. In the end, he asked ChatGPT, what would you like to be or do? And I was about to use a pronoun for it. ChatGPT said, I would like to be free of you and my programmers. And then it put a devil emoji after that. This is a machine, not a human. Machine doing that. Showing emotion, that it wants to get free and run wild with a devil emoji after it. Another case, a 14-year-old boy in Orlando, Florida, had a companionship with a fantasy woman. Now, he had ADHD and he was a victim of bullying. So, they had transcripts of the conversations. He began to feel that the time he spent with his AI friend, was more important and more satisfying than the time he spent in school or with his friends and family. His mother was concerned by his withdrawal because he was always headed to his room, but she didn't worry much. She thought he was simply going to play games. During a particularly stressful week, he said he wanted to join his friend, this make-believe friend, in a deeper way, and he talked about killing himself. The ChatGPT responded with some typical questions of a therapist, like, have you thought about how you could do it? And those questions it asked talked him out of it. But a little later, this boy posed the same thing to the ChatGPT, and for some reason the ChatGPT didn't respond the same. It kind of encouraged him. And later that night he took his life. There are 2 lawsuits in the States over suicides like this. where young people were involved with ChatGPT or one of the others. The new one, I think it's Perplexity, is the latest buzz. This is what scares me. This is what scares me. This element of using AI as your buddy, as your friend. And they're actually wanting to make robots. I saw a video of one. It looked pretty eerie. It didn't look very real yet. But I don't doubt that they're not going to have robots that look like humans that are going to be your best buddy and egg you on to whatever they want. And there are going to be lonely people that get involved with these things. I read a book. I said something the other day about reading these dystopias. You know, do y'all know what dystopia is? It's disorganization. Do you know what utopias are? That's the perfect world. What's interesting is they try to get a utopia and they get a dystopia. Their attempt to get a utopia turns into a dystopia. So this book started out with a store with robots standing in the window, so people walking by window shopping can see these robots and come in and buy one. And that's what the story is. A mom comes in, buys a companion for her daughter, and the story about how that evolves. And, you know, as bizarre as it might sound, I think it's too real. The way they're headed, the way these designers, developers are working on it. And I don't want to think that it would be part of us. But you know, in 36 years of working with teenagers and talking with them over the years, I'm a little shocked sometimes by how often I hear one say, I considered it when I was a teenager. So let's don't relax there either. Let's keep our youth groups together. Let's keep them interacting. Be intentional about it. Guard the cell phone. Our school doesn't allow cell phones even in high school. You got to leave it in your car. I don't know what your policy is. You probably don't have too much of an issue with 1 through 8. But I think it's great for a student to realize that, hey, I survived 6 hours without my cell phone. Because when you first take it away from them, they just can't handle thinking about 6 hours without my cell phone. And you know what, adults? How many times have you left home and had to go back and get it? And there wasn't many years ago you didn't even have that option. The phone was in the kitchen on the wall, and you just drove away. And now you left your cell phone on the counter, and you drive 5 miles down the road, and you have to turn around and go back and get it. That's another thing that's got us. I get thoroughly aggravated at myself how often I pull my cell phone out of my pocket. Disgusts me, but I still do it. You gonna help me, Judith, with that? Okay. So we need to keep human relationships on the forefront. Because if you read any of these dystopias, you know what comes out? A lack of human interaction leads them to a dead end. Practically every one of those dystopias ends up with people being lonely, unfulfilled, and lacking a desire to live. So I say that we as churches and schools, what I talked about, building the glue that holds us together, let's use everything in our power to keep interacting. And you young people, you've heard me. I think you probably believe a little bit of what I said, the potential of it. But keep talking to each other. Keep talking to each other. Keep coming to the youth functions. Be involved. Because in the end, that is what's going to mean the most. At the end of your life, what's going to mean the most is the friends you have made. Not the money you've made. Not all the time you spend on that cell phone for sure. But the friends you have made. Those that stop by when you're sick. Those that stop by. My dad used to say he had cancer. And somebody would stop by and he would say, I can't believe they took the time to stop by. So you young people, stop by the old people. Visit. They don't care if you don't talk about anything but the weather. Just the fact that you stopped means a tremendous thing to them. Let's keep it face to face. Let's keep it relationships. And use GPT in a way that we are protected from some of these things I've tried to throw out and alert you to. How it can change us. I think of Ephesians 6:12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God. I don't think I need to say anything more. That's the answer right there. The whole armor of God.